Okay. There we go. It appears to be working. I have to keep turning my mouse on and off because my main camera is grumpy. Let me check the sound. Testing 1, 2, 3. Uno, dos, tres. My sound check guy is not responding. So let's just log in myself. Let's see if I show up here on the YouTubes. It looks like it's working. On the YouTubes. All right, it is working. Cool. All right, what's up, everybody? Using a different camera than usual because my main camera is not working very well, so bear with me. But welcome. Thank you for tuning in. I'll do my best to look at the right camera today. And today I am practicing a training video that I am currently constructing. And you know, I do a lot of these videos, but I usually don't practice that much, or I don't really plan what I'm going to say that much, because it's a lot more fun and easier to just do this and say whatever I want to say and not really worry about it too much. But every once in a while it's important to have something that's a little more polished. And so that's what I've been working on for the last week, is this presentation that's aimed towards landscaping companies, but the principles are the same for any local business. And so it doesn't matter if you're a landscaper or you're a remodeler or you're a home inspector or you blow out sprinklers or you're a pressure washer, like whatever. If you deliver goods and services to people in your local area, then these principles apply directly to you. And so as I'm going along, please post up your questions in the chat. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to ask questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. And there's no reason why you should leave this live stream without having your question answered. So if you don't ask, then I can't answer. But seriously, ask me anything you like. So let's see. Like I said, I was having some camera troubles, so I'm not completely done getting set up, but I'm probably close enough. So I have an outline written. I'm just gonna kind of read off the outline, look what's there, and talk about it. I'll spend most of my time on here in the meat and potatoes of this presentation, so I don't bore you to death. After all, like, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this on a Saturday morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. And I want it to be valuable for you, and so it can't all be my practice. It has to be about you as well. And you'll have to excuse me, I'm also still eating my breakfast. All right, so this presentation starts off with introducing one of my clients. This is one of my most recent ones. We launched their website about 6 weeks ago, and they happen to be like some of the best, quickest results that we've ever seen. And so it's cool that it's one of the most recent ones, because usually that's not the case. But anyways, this client's name is Aaron Lundy, and Aaron multiplied his business roughly 6 times almost overnight. As soon as we good messages here. As soon as we launched his new site, he started getting about 6 times as many phone calls and estimate requests than he was before at his busiest time. So he's been in business for about a year, his busiest period last year, he was doing, I guess, about 5 estimates a week, and now he's doing anywhere from, and he's doing more than 5 per day some days. He just texted me the other day and said he had done like 7 that day. And so this guy's getting insane results. And yeah, 8 estimates in one day on Thursday. So it's pretty amazing when all we did was go in and apply the fundamentals, do the same things that we do all the time. Like, granted, we do get a little bit better every single project, but these are the things I've been talking about in these videos for months now. And so there's really, at least 40% of this stuff has been covered on my channel already. If you go back and watch my videos, in particular, the mini course, foundational marketing mini course videos, like that's me actually sitting down doing my best to explain how this stuff works. Explain the things that we do and show you kind of how they work so that you can implement them yourself or tell your marketing company or marketing person what to do, like whatever. If you do these things, you will get results similar to these. And it can happen almost overnight. So if you have a business that is already successful, but you're not taking advantage of the internet and the exposure that it can provide you, then you can see results overnight. And in this video, I'm going to kind of talk about my background a little bit, where I came from, how I ended up here on the screen talking to you about this stuff. And then I'm going to give you a few pointers, a few like major things that you can look at and you can adjust for yourself. And you make these adjustments, you might just see a 6x explosion, in the next week or two. It really does work like that. So let's just get into it. So first of all, how did I come about being into this stuff? Like, after all, this channel is called Chuck the Contractor. So I grew up in like working in a remodeling company, essentially. My dad started a remodeling company a little over 20 years ago. And so, I had been swinging a hammer since I was a little kid. But around 13 or 14, I started working with my dad out in the field and, did that throughout my teens and 20s. I was a contractor. I was a carpenter. And back in the housing crash of 07, 08, all the work suddenly stopped for us. And we had to do something. And my uncle at the time was like really into the internet. He was working with some guy in the UK on some kind of thing. They were calling it Trip B&B. It was supposed to be like the Airbnb of like trips, like travel stuff. And he just was super pumped on the internet. And he was telling us one night, he came over for dinner, and he was saying, you guys should get a website. Hardly anyone else in the area has got a website. If you guys get one, like, that will bring in customers. And we were like, okay, we'll give it a shot. And my stepmom, she's a little bit tech savvy, and she taught herself HTML. It's like a code that you use to program websites. And she put together a website for us. Let's pull it up here. Wayback Machine. So you can actually go back in time and look at old websites. So I'll show you roughly what ours looked like. It doesn't look perfect, but you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about here. So you can see back in 2008, that's when we first started this website, and it looked super old school. It was, it was one of those old school websites. If you were using the internet back in 2008, then you know what I'm talking about. This was the year after the iPhone came out. And so this was pretty much before smartphones were a big deal and everyone was using, their computer for everything. But this is kind of what it looked like. And we had installation services, rebate corner, norms corner. This was like a blog. This was like, my stepmom was way ahead of her time. She was like a pioneer of this stuff. And this website, even though it's, it looks super old school, the pictures are super grainy and stuff like that, this thing brought in tons of customers. And that's because people were looking for contractors online, and we were like one of the few that were actually showing up on Google or Yahoo or whatever search engine people were using back then. And this thing carried us through those slow times. And when things picked back up a few years later, we were booming. We had the busiest year ever was 2015, and a lot of our work came from this website. And over the years, the calls started to dwindle. And what was happening is other companies were creating websites and putting them online, and they were overshadowing us. They were built with newer technologies. They looked better. They showed up on smartphones, and they just overtook us online. And eventually we got so overtaken that our website didn't even show up on the first page of Google. We didn't get any phone calls from it at all. But my family didn't care too much because we had so much work from repeat customers and referrals. We didn't really care anymore. But the day did eventually come. After I had started my marketing company, it was just like a couple years after that, my dad called one day and said, "Hey, can you make our website work like it used to?" And I was like, "Sure, of course I can. All we have to do is get it back to the top of Google search, because over 90% of people are using Google now. And then it will go back to the way it was before." And so I put together a newer looking website, one that looks good on a smartphone. It's faster, it's got better pictures, and made sure that it went back to the top of Google. And we started getting phone calls again. And here we are on Google Maps, and here we are on Google. This was at the top a couple weeks ago, but it's since kind of knocked down. I think it's because we stopped taking new clients. I shut down the contact form on the site. We don't have any room for new clients anymore. So even if you click on the schedule a meeting button, you can just see we're fully booked. So that's all. Almost all of our work these days comes from that website, and it's all the same as it was before. It's just a matter that we are found first on Google when people are searching. And so I like to call them the good old days of the internet, when you could just slap together a website, put it online, and get tremendous results. Those days are over. But it doesn't mean you can't still get tremendous results. It just means that it's not as simple as slapping together a website and putting it online. You have to be a lot more strategic. You have to pay a lot more. You have to pay a lot closer attention to detail, and there's just a lot more that goes into it now. But if you can manage to show up when people are searching and look professional, those two things, then you can really blow up your business. So one thing I'm going to offer in this training video is called a strategy session. So that's a 45-minute Zoom call, face-to-face video call, that you can apply for if you are interested in these kinds of marketing services. And I'll sit down with you for 45 minutes and we'll talk about your business, your goals, where you are now, where you're trying to go, and put together like a game plan of how you can get there. And then it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to work with us, or if you want to work with another company, or even try to do some of the stuff yourself. What you do will depend on your situation, your finances, your expertise, and all that kind of stuff. So that's something to be explored. But that's the offer that will be in this training video. And there's two testimonials, or two customers that I'm going to showcase in this, and both of them, like I said, this is for landscapers. So both of these companies are landscaping companies. And there's two situations. There's the Aaron Lundy, the guy I talked about already, who his business is about a year old now. And he just multiplied his revenue by 6 times roughly with this new lead generation. He's now doing over 50 estimates a month. And that has allowed him to really skip a few levels of growth in his business and just kind of skip ahead, hire more people, pay them good wages, The next person he hires is probably going to be an estimator because he's spending so much time doing estimates now. Where he used to be spending his time driving around in the middle of the night putting flyers in people's mailboxes. This guy hustled his butt off to do anything he had to do to get customers. But now his website and his Google Maps listing are bringing in all the customers he needs. So this is his website right here. This is Aaron. Aaron is the ultimate landscaping hustler. Props to you, Aaron, if you happen to see this. And this is his Google listing, and you can see, just 38 phone calls just from this listing in the last 30 days. 44 people went to his website from the listing, and a lot of people call him from there. And all we did was put together a professional look for him, and then build the kind of website that Google will put on the top of the list. That's all we had to do. And it's super basic, fundamental stuff, but I would say 99% of the companies, maybe more, 99+% of the companies out there just don't get these fundamentals right. And so they get this idea of online marketing and websites that they just don't work, or that you have to spend $1 million a year on advertising or something. To my knowledge, Aaron isn't spending any money on advertising, and his business is exploding. So that's kind of the first scenario. But there's another scenario, which is another customer of mine, Wesley Childs. And Childs has been he started his landscaping business when he was like 10 years old, about 20 years ago. And at this point in his company's growth, it's a much larger company, and he's not looking for explosive growth. He's looking for steady growth. And so I believe he said he's been growing about 20% year over year since we've been working together. And that's a good uptrend for him. He doesn't want to double his business tomorrow because he doesn't have the infrastructure to handle it. He's already got like 40 plus employees, and he can't just find 40 more if his business doubled tomorrow. So he's looking for a steady growth pattern where Lundy was looking for a straight up exponential growth pattern. And so those are the two examples I'm going to use in this training video to illustrate what kind of results can be gained from doing this stuff. And before I get into some of the nuts and bolts, let's talk about why people fail at this stuff. So the first reason a lot of people just don't do well at this is they don't understand how Google works. And the best way to figure this out is to just go to Google and pay attention to what you're doing. Think about, okay, if I was a customer of mine and I'm a landscaper, I'm going to look for like a tree removal near me. I might type something like that in. And then what is Google showing me here? We've got some ads up here. We've got Home Advisor. Everyone's heard of Home Advisor. We've got 4 companies here. This one's an ad. Okay. What do we have down here? We've got Thumbtack, Yelp, Home Advisor. So these are all lead reselling companies. Good to know. And that's another lead reseller, Grace Tree Services. Okay, so that's the first company that I saw in the actual landscaping company or tree removal company. And just spend some time trying to pretend that you are your customer and you are looking for somebody to do this service. What kind of things do you care about? What kind of things is Google showing you? Google is a computer. It's a computer program that's been written by probably millions of people at this point. What does Google think you're looking for? What is Google showing you? After all, Google's main objective is to get you to keep using Google. So it wants to give you the best search results that it can. And so what is it showing you? And you just got to pay attention to this stuff. And eventually, if you do this long enough, like I have, you get this intuitive understanding of how Google works. And you start to figure out what you need to do to be in Google's favor. If you don't understand how Google works, then you're going to have a really hard time with this stuff. The next reason why people fail all the time is that they're too focused on themselves. So often when I start working with somebody and they already have a website, maybe they built it themselves, You go to their website and it's all about them. We do this, we like this, us, I, we. They're talking about themselves the whole time, which is common. I mean, we as people, we naturally think about ourselves. So I get it. But when you're marketing, it's not about you, it's about your customer. And so your website needs to speak to them. It needs to have the information that they care about. And when you do talk about yourself, you need to talk about yourself in a way that conveys a message to your customers. Like on this is Aaron's homepage. From a young age, I wanted to own my own business. My dream came true when I opened my lawn care business in my home country, Southwest Virginia. Okay, so he's talking about himself, but this is conveying the message that, okay, this guy's dream was to have this business. And he must take it really seriously, and that means he's going to try to do a good job for me. Those are the kind of things that you need to be thinking about. And everything else on this website besides this section, it's all about the customer. Plants and trees give your yard character. We're talking to the person who's reading this. We're not talking about what we think about trees. We're talking about what they care about. We're doing our best to. And if you can flip that and stop thinking about yourself when you're marketing and think about your customers, that will make a huge difference. I could go on and on about reasons why people fail, but those two are pretty major. So if you recognize yourself in that, try to do something different. See if you can try to do something different. All right, here's the meat and potatoes. Let's talk about a few things that you can look at that get good results. And in case you've never heard of the 80-20 rule, it's also called Pareto's principle. And Pareto's principle, let's just Google it real quick. Pareto's principle. The 80-20 rule states that 20% of the actions you take will be responsible for 80% of the results you get. And this is like a law. This is like a law of nature. 20% of the salespeople out there make 80% of the sales. 20% of your customers will make up 80% of your revenue. And this rule is found everywhere. And so we use it in marketing a lot and business. We try to find those 20% of actions we can take that will get 80% of the results, because then we can get a lot more for the time that we're putting in here. And so that's what I've done with this video is I've tried to condense, there's hundreds of things that we look at and places that we make adjustments, but I'm only going to talk about like 4 of them here. And so I'm doing my best to focus on the few things that are going to make the biggest impact for you. And that's called the 80-20 rule. So the first rule of marketing, local business marketing, is to look professional. So this might be a no-brainer. You might be like, oh, duh, you need to look professional. But what does that mean to look professional? It means you have a professional looking logo. It means that your employees and you wear clothing that's got your logo on it when you go to people's houses. It means that your trucks look good. They look clean. They've got your logo on the side. It means that everything is congruent. And when people see you, even if you're a one-man show, you look like a legit company. You look like an entity that has had a lot of thought and care put into it, because that's going to convey the message that you are going to do a good job for people. And at the end of the day, that's all people care about. They don't really care about you. They only care about themselves and what you can do for them. And so looking professional will help them feel like you can give them what they're looking for, that you'll do a good job, you'll be reliable, you'll be professional. And the same thing goes for a website. If a website is not clean and orderly and organized and presentable, then it's not going to look professional. And a good test of this is how proud of you are you? How proud are you of your website? When somebody asks, hey, what's your website? Are you excited to tell them? Or are you like, oh, don't go to my website. Maybe you should go find me on LinkedIn. Or here's my business card. Don't look at my website. If that's you, then you got a huge issue. You need to fix that. You should be proud of your company, of your clothes, of your website, of your business card, of your truck. You should be proud of that because that energy feeds through everything you do, and it's going to make people trust you. If you're ashamed of part of your business, it's going to come through and people are going to think that you give a crappy product or service. They're not going to hire you as much. So looking professional is key, not just for other people's perceptions, but for your own perceptions of yourself. Super, super important. Number 2, and this is in regards to your website, talk about all of the services you offer. So like I said earlier about Google, Google is a computer. It's a program that reads text. Yeah, Google's getting better at looking at images and videos and understanding what they are, but Google is a million times better at understanding the text. And so if somebody in your town searches for tree removal and there's no mention of tree removal on your website, there's 0% chance that you are going to show up for that service. And it's because it's not on your site. So you need to talk about everything you do. And that's one of the major, one of the things that we did for Lundy that had such an incredible impact. Because the website he had before was focused mainly on lawn care. Because he had this idea that, okay, if I can get hired for lawn care, then that will give me my foot in the door with people and I will be able to sell them other services, which is a great tactic. But he was missing out on all the people in his area that were already searching for these other services. And he just wasn't showing up at all. And so when we created this new site for him and we talked about every single service he offers, see, this is the tree services page, tree removal, stump removal, tree trimming, tree care. We talk about all the different aspects of this. Now all of a sudden he's showing up number 1 for all of these different searches. If somebody needs a stump removed or grinded away, if somebody needs pruning or a tree removed or even tree planting, he's showing up at top of Google for all of these things. And where tree removal and landscape construction used to be like 20% of his business, these two things now make up 2/3 of his business. And it happened overnight because he just wasn't getting this attention before, and now he is. And you know, it's just exploded his business. He told me recently, you know, this was shortly after we launched, maybe 3 or 4 weeks. He sent me a picture of his calendar and it had like 50 estimates on it for like 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And he said the first 2 jobs that closed from those were enough to pay for his marketing for the entire year and then some. And they were tree and landscape construction related. So those are 2 jobs he probably wouldn't have got before. He got now, paid for all of this stuff. And now every other job he gets for the rest of the year is just money on top. So that's what you're going for with this kind of stuff. And if you don't talk about it on your website, you're most likely not going to show up for it. So talk about it. And you don't have to be like a super expert writer or anything either. If you're not a great writer, pull out your phone, turn on the voice recorder app, and just record yourself talking about your services as if you were trying to explain to somebody what they are. And if you have to, find somebody that can write this stuff for you, that can listen to the words you're saying, put them into text, make it clean, edited, professional looking, and then put it on your website. And you can see results almost overnight. You know, it could be a few days later, all of a sudden you're showing up. Google works fast these days, especially if you're already an established business. Okay, so first one, look professional. Second one, talk about all your services on your website. Critical. If you do those 2 things, if you're not doing those 2 things now and you start doing those 2 things next week, your business is gonna blast off. The next thing is get reviews on Google. So reviews, people trust reviews more than they trust their own families now. And I always get shit for telling this story because I tell it all the time, but it's true. Think about it. Like if somebody in your family, if your grandma says, hey, you got to go to this new restaurant I just tried. It's so good. It's my favorite restaurant now. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. And then you type their name into Google and you go look at their reviews, and there's 100 one-star reviews. And there's talking about how there's rats running around and how the chicken was undercooked and stinky, and that everyone in the family got super sick after eating there. And there's all these really bad reviews. Are you going to go eat at that restaurant? I mean, I certainly wouldn't. I'd be like, Grandma, you must be thinking of a different restaurant, because that one doesn't seem to be very good. The internet has changed the landscape for consumers. No longer are people reliant on you or a salesman to tell them what's going on. They can go online, they can read reviews, they can get all the information they need to know exactly what this is going to be like before they purchase it. So if you don't have enough good reviews, people are just going to find somebody else that does. Going back to understanding how Google works, I type in bathroom remodeler near me. The first 4 things I see are ads. 40% of people automatically skip ads. They don't even look at them. I'm one of those 40%. I'm on Google searching for something. I don't want somebody to assert themselves into my life. I want to find my own thing. That's why I'm searching for it. I'm not looking for something that someone's shoving in my face. I want to find it on my own, and then I feel better about it because I found it on my own. So I skip ads. The next thing I'll see is Google Maps. This is a Google Maps box. This is, hold on a sec. This is where most people will stop. They'll see the reviews. They'll see all this information. They'll click on here. They'll read through the reviews. They'll look at pictures. And like this one right here. This is a nice review. It talks about how great we are, how the experience was. There's pictures all over the place. This one review alone is probably responsible for bringing in, a few phone calls a week for us. And it's going to be here forever. And it didn't cost us anything to have this review. It didn't cost us anything to have this listing. It's free. There's just, if you don't do it, then your competitors are taking customers away from you. And if you really believe you're the best service around, if you provide the best service, then you kind of owe it to your customers to make sure that you show up here, or they're not going to be able to find you, and they're going to end up going with someone else that might not be as good. That's how I feel about it anyway. So reviews, super important. The more you have, the better. There's some kind of magical number. It's different for everyone, but somewhere around 30 to 40 reviews. If you have 40 5-star reviews, people, they look at it and they're like, okay, like I can trust this company, just because of the volume of other people that had a good experience. And when, like, on the Google search page, we've got 12, this guy's got 13, so we're pretty much even. But if this guy had 50 and we only had 12, people would look at this and be like, okay, well, I'm going to click on the one with 50 first, obviously, because it's got more proof. And that's what we're going for here, is proof. So reviews, critically important. A lot of people seem to be afraid to ask for them. They feel like it's bragging or it's boasting or whatever, but wrong. Just forget about that. Ask for reviews. You can, when you log into your Google listing, you can click this button, share review form. You can copy this link and send it to people in a text or an email. And when they click on it, it's going to take them straight to your listing. It's going to open up the review box, and then it's going to tell you, it's going to let them leave a review for you. It doesn't get any easier than that. So I like to ask as I'm leaving someone's house for the last time at the end of the project. I just rolled up the drop cloths. I just vacuumed and swept, and everything looks pristine, and the customer's super happy because all these people that have been in their house for a month are now leaving, and they're never going to come back, and they get to enjoy their house. They're at a high point, so that's when I ask, hey, would you mind leaving a review for us to explain and show other people what it's like to work with us? And they always say yes. I won't ask somebody if they're having a bad time, but that almost never happens. So I ask then, and then I tell them I'll text them or I'll email them this review link, and then I send it to them, and maybe 30% of the time somebody will leave the review right then and there. But most of the time I have to follow up with them, 1 week, 2 weeks later, and I'll just keep following up with them every week until they leave the review. And that's all you got to do. And if you do that, over time, you will get a bunch of reviews and they'll really help you. You can see Lundy's got 17. When we first started working with him, he either had 0 or 1. And this guy, one of the reasons why he got such amazing overnight results is that he really went all in on this stuff. We said, hey man, you need to get reviews. It's super important. Like a week later, he had 13 reviews. He just went all out, and that's what it takes. And now he's got 17, and his schedule's jam-packed. He couldn't even do any more estimates if he wanted to. So reviews, critically important. Got to get them. The fourth and final tip I'm going to give you is to complete your Google Maps listing. The Google Maps listing is the thing that shows up in this box right here. You can get yours by going to google.com/business. Chances are you already have one. So go to Google and type in the name of your company and try to find your listing. And then figure out how to log into it and fill that thing out all the way. And what do I mean by that? I mean, in the info panel, choose all the categories that are relevant for you. Make sure the categories are the right ones. You wouldn't believe how many painters out there call themselves a painting store. They're not a painting store, they're a painter. If somebody Googles painter and your category is painting store, you're not going to be found. Same with plumbers. I don't know how many plumbers I've seen that use plumbing store. You're not a plumbing store, you're a plumber. So it's so important that you use the correct categories. And one way to do some research on this is to go to Google, type in the service that you're looking for, or type in the service that you want to do, and see what kind of categories Google shows for you. Look, bathroom remodeler. If you want to show up for bathroom remodeling, then use the bathroom remodeler keywords. And see how many keywords that you can find in there that relate to what you're doing. Most of the time, you want to choose every keyword that is relevant. There's only, if you are in a super hyper mega competitive area, then you might want to just choose one category. That's something that we'll do sometimes for clients when they're in a super competitive area and we find that a lot of their competitors aren't using a particular category. We might choose that one and only choose that one because we're trying to hyper focus on that one category so that we can at least show up first for that particular search. Because it's better to show up first for one thing than 0 things. If you spread yourself out too thin on your marketing, you just will get buried by your competitors. So if you're in a competitive area, you have to focus like a laser. And that's the only time that we'll choose one category. Another thing to think about doing is altering your name. So let's go back to the bathroom remodeler. So you can see that our name is NL Kyle Construction. That's the business name. But I tacked on remodeling contractor to the end of that. And that helps me get found for when people type in remodeling contractor. I can't type and talk at the same time. So that's a little tip, and you can't go crazy with this. You can't add 1 million keywords to the end of your name. You don't want it to look unnatural. You want it to add or provide a better experience for your customers. That's the main thing. If you make that the focus, the focal point of everything you do, making the experience your customers have with you better, then Google will reward you. Because at the end of the day, Google gets people to use Google by giving them the best experience possible. So if you align yourself with Google in that way, then you will get rewarded. If you start to do things that detract from their experience, like if I change my name to NL Kyle Construction, kitchen remodeling, bathroom remodeling, decks, windows, if I add all that stuff, it's going to start detracting from the experience, and Google is going to be like, hey, we don't like that. And they're not going to show me as often. So always remember that. Be careful when you're changing your name. That's one of the things that I will be really careful with. Like, I'll finish the listing, and then like a month later, I'll change the name, and I'll look closely at what happens after that, because if it makes things worse, I want to change it back. But it's just a little trick that you can use sometimes to get better results. What else can we talk about in here? Services. There's a services tab. You want to go in here and add all of your services and talk about them. Anywhere that there's a place, like this is all stuff that's been added for me by Google, because Google's like, hey, it looks like you do all this stuff. Thank you, Google. But you want to go in here and you want to talk about this stuff. Anywhere that there's a place for you to put information, fill it up. Add as many photos as you can. Make sure that your logo's in there, and just do everything you can to make this thing complete and look professional. And if you do that, you'll get a lot better results. If you don't do that, then you're kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like going to try to play baseball without bringing your mitt. Like you're going in half cocked. You're not going to do a very good job if if you don't completely fill this thing out. So those are the 4 major things. Look professional, duh. Kind of an obvious one, but you wouldn't believe how many people don't pay attention to this. Look professional, wear branded hats, have your brand logo on your truck. Just do everything you can to be proud of your image. If you're proud of the way you and your employees look, if you're proud of the way your trucks look, if you're proud of your website and you want everyone in the world to see it, that's a sign that you look professional. And that's going to shine through your own attitude and your own actions. It's going to make your employees feel better, and that confidence is going to shine through and convey that message to your customers that you're here to kick ass, you're here to give them the best experience possible. And that they can see that through your image. So 1, look professional. 2, talk about all the services you offer on your website. Lundy, you can see he's got 6 service pages here. We've got a page for every category of service he does, and we talk about all of the different aspects of that service. If you don't talk about it on your website, Google's not going to show you for it. So talk about everything. You don't have to go overboard. Remember, it's about customer experience. You want people to have the best experience possible every moment they're dealing with you and your company. And your website is the same. So give them clear, concise information. Help them find what they're looking for. If somebody goes to this site and they're the kind of person that wants to do a bunch of research, or they want to know as much as they can about a company before they work with them, they're going to scroll through. They're going to read some of this stuff. They're going to be like, oh, okay, hardscaping. I see a wall here. That's what I'm looking for. I want a retaining wall. So they're going to start clicking on things, and what are they going to find? They click on that. Okay, retaining walls, perfect. That's what I'm looking for. Oh, but they do other stuff here too. Oh, there's more about hardscaping. Well, let's go see what else they say. And there's a whole page dedicated to this stuff. So if somebody's looking for retaining walls, they can go down the rabbit hole. They can find more and more information. If they get to this point, they read all this, they're ready to move forward. We make it super easy for them to get a hold of this company and move forward. And so number 2, talk about all of your services on your website. Number 3, get reviews on Google. Don't be afraid to ask for reviews. Don't be afraid to follow up. Keep asking until they leave the review or they ask you to stop calling them. I've never had anybody get offended or grumpy with me for asking for reviews. I've only had a couple people that didn't leave reviews. I eventually stopped asking because it's not the end of the world. We have enough customers. We only have 12 reviews. That's not that much. We could do a lot better at this. But 12 reviews has been enough for us. So make sure that if the bigger your company is, the more locations you have, the more reviews you need. And if you're a one-man show, then then you're the one asking. But if you have employees, build it into the process. Offer them rewards for getting reviews. I have customers who they tell their employees that they'll get like a gift card or a cash bonus for every review that mentions them by name. And so if you do stuff like that, then all of a sudden you have your employees doing your marketing for you, and your reach goes a lot farther. So whatever you have to do, get reviews. They should be on Google, but that's not the only place. This is another client of ours. If you look on their Google listing, they've got this part, reviews from the web, and they're pulling reviews from other websites. And so step one is get some reviews on Google. But once you have some there, it's okay to get reviews other places. And this looks really good. This listing brings in a ton of work for these guys. And I think that having these 5 out of 5 from all these different websites is very helpful for them. And so that's just an extra little tip. You can spread your reviews out, but one way or another, be getting reviews. That's how people make buying decisions these days. The final point is to complete your Google listing. Make sure the categories are correct. Make sure that your location is correct. I had a customer in Los Angeles. Their location was set to San Francisco. It's no wonder he never got any calls from it. And just make sure that all this stuff is correct, and that you talk about all the services you offer, and that you have a description, and that you have your logo and a bunch of pictures. Just fill this thing up, because this is how people are going to find you on Google. And this will often be the first place they look before they go and look at your website or whatever. So they want to see reviews, they want to see pictures, let them, give them something to chew on, and give Google something to chew on. So look professional, talk about all of your services on your website, get reviews, and complete your Google listing. If you do all 4 of those things and you take some time and put some effort into it, then you could get really great results in a matter of days. The evidence that we have is overwhelming, but you don't even need that evidence. You just go to Google and look at it. If you're in a competitive area, you're going to see companies with hundreds of reviews, and these are going to be the companies that are the most successful. They're making a point to get reviews. They pay attention to their marketing. They're investing in that stuff. If the biggest and best companies are doing it, then it's a clear sign that it's working. If you have any questions, let me know. It looks like my chat is disabled for some reason. Let's open up YouTube here, see if there's anything in the chat. Doesn't look like it. So if you have any questions, please post them up. A couple questions that I get all the time, I'll just answer real quick. Question 1 is, can I get the same results as you if I build a website using like a website builder like Wix or Squarespace? So Wix and Squarespace, if you've seen their commercials, it's all about, you don't have to be a professional. You can just build a website and you'll get, tons of customers and that kind of stuff. It's not like that. A Wix website is probably better than no website. But one thing that people ask me quite often is, can I build my own website, or can I have this other person build a website for cheaper and then have you do your thing? And the answer is no. We use the tools that we use for a reason, and it would actually be a lot more time consuming and less effective to try to use something that somebody else made, because it's kind of like building a house. If a framer comes through and just totally botches the framing, then everything else is going to be messed up. And if it's seriously botched, it might be better to just tear it down and do it right than to try to build on top of it. And that's the same thing with marketing and websites and all that kind of stuff. If it's not done correctly from the very foundation, then the rest of the project is going to suffer. And the most important element in marketing is time. A lot of people think it's money, but what would you rather? Time is the most important thing. A year from now, if your marketing is only 20% as effective as it could be, that's going to be costing you so much more money than it would have if you just did it right from the beginning. So, think about that. But to directly answer the question, it's not the same. You can build a website with Wix or Squarespace, but the tools you use to build the website are not even fractionally as important as what goes on the website. So that's where marketing comes into it. You don't want a web designer, you want a marketer. I see that stuff all the time. Okay, next question. When I talk to SEO companies, they say it will take at least 6 months to get results. So back in the day, let me just see if I can. So back in the day, it used to take a lot longer for Google to adjust the search engine results, and it was common for things to take 6 months. Like if you start a brand new website from scratch today, you buy the domain today, you get the thing launched, Google does like put their thumb on new websites, and it makes perfect sense if you think about it. Like think of it from Google's perspective. You have all these search results and they hardly ever change, and they might be micro adjusted, but Google's paying really close attention to what people do with those search results. And that's even a huge factor now, is Google will watch what people do. They'll click on a website, Google Analytics is installed on that website, so Google can see everything everybody does. And they're using that information to decide if that was a good search result to show or not. And it would be bad for Google to just let a brand new website that was created yesterday slide up to the top of the search results, because who knows how long that thing will be around. Maybe it'll be around for 2 weeks and then it goes away, but it's still showing on Google. It's less likely to be the best search result if it's brand new. Like there's all sorts of reasons. It would be bad for Google if someone was able to just come in and instantly get to the top of the search results and take over the market. That would be bad for Google. That would make it very unstable, and make it volatile. And so Google has a tendency, and this has been proven over and over again in my own experience, that they will hold down a new website for 6 months. And I've seen it so many times. The trend will be up, and then as soon as 6 months is up, it just spikes up. And so that's a safeguard Google has put in place. So if you have a brand new website, yes, it can take 6 months to start seeing really good results. If your website's been around for more than 6 months and tomorrow we launch a completely new website that's got all your services, that looks professional, that's designed to be found on Google, then the results will come very quickly. It could be a matter of days, weeks, most likely within the first month, like 4 to 6 weeks, that website is going to be showing where it's going to show. That's the ramp up period. So it doesn't always take 6 months. It does take some time to get results, but mostly that's dependent on how much time we have to spend on it. And that's dependent on how much your budget is. So if you are ready to just do everything you can, like Lundy was, then we can get things done in a matter of 4 to 6 weeks and have the whole project complete. And 4 to 6 weeks after that, you will be cruising where you're going to be. And so the results can come quickly. If you've had a website around for a while and you go in and you change some of these things that I talked about today, you'll see results probably within a week. It doesn't take long for Google to figure out what's going on. Internet's fast these days. The computers are fast. They've got machine learning and AI. They have all this stuff that just makes these things happen much quicker. The third question, I'm already busy, so why should I invest in marketing when I obviously don't need it? This is maybe one of the most common things people say. And I'll say this. The time to invest in marketing is when you don't need it, because desperation stinks. And it takes time to figure out what to do, to implement a plan. And if you aren't making money when you're going through all that, it's going to be stressful. It's going to negatively impact the project, and it's just not a good approach. If you're in this for the long run, if you actually want to build like a really stable, long-term successful business, investing in marketing is just part of the overhead. Like, you should have a yearly budget for your marketing, and that should be determined on your revenue and how much, like, what your goals are. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? How big is that gap? And then you sit down with someone like me and try to decide what needs to happen for you to bridge that gap in the amount of time that you want to do it. Maybe you want to do it as fast as possible, like Lundy, or maybe you want to do a slow cruise or a slow burn like Chiles. It just depends on what you're doing. But Chiles budgets his marketing on a yearly basis. Lundy does it on a monthly basis. Chiles has been around for 20 years. Lundy's been around for 1 year. So it depends on where you're at. But especially if times are good right now, you should be taking a chunk of your profit and putting it into your marketing now. And that's going to keep the times good. Feast and famine isn't everyone's ideal way of operating a business. I know some people like it. Some people like to work really hard for 3 months and then take 2 months off. If that's you, awesome. But, it doesn't mean you shouldn't invest in marketing. You can still take vacations. But, yeah, I mean, just because things are busy now doesn't mean they're always going to be busy. I have another story. Really, the way I got into marketing was the company I was working for had always done really well off of repeat business and referrals. And then one day, a job ended prematurely, and we had no other jobs lined up. And all of a sudden, it was like, oh, man, the owner was thinking, wow, I really should have invested in marketing. I've just been procrastinating this for too long. And, it took us like a few months to get jobs back on the board because we had to scramble and put together a website, figure out how to do advertising, and go meet with dozens of people and produce a bunch of estimates and stuff like that. It was really stressful for the business owner. And he now invests in his marketing on a monthly basis and has been for years. And he gets a steady flow of calls all the time. And so he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. That will never happen again. And that's the point. So that's all the questions. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for letting me, practice this presentation a little bit. Keep tuned in to this channel if you're into stuff like this. I think the content's getting better slowly over time, and I'm not trying to like hide any of my secrets or anything like that. Like, I'm an open book. I like to share the things that I know. I want everybody to be successful. There's plenty of work for everybody. But the good times won't last forever. And it's going to be those people that are found online that are going to get customers when times get worse. So don't be one of those people that waits till the last minute to get this stuff together. Start thinking about it now. Start taking action. Make it something you do on a monthly basis, whether you're doing it yourself or you're paying someone else to do it. Either invest some time or invest some money in your marketing on a monthly basis. Make sure that your company's image and professionalism is something that you're proud of, and focus really, really hard on improving the experience that your customers have when they deal with your company. You do those 3 things, you'll be A-okay. So thank you for tuning in. Have a great rest of your weekend, and maybe I'll see you on the next one.